the moon religion of Yahweh and its reflection in Arabism, the penetration of the Buddha-Mercury stream into Rosicrucianism. Today we shall be bringing to a close, for the time being, this winter's rather disconnected studies of St. Mark's Gospel. The passages quoted in the last lecture, to the effect that we are living in a period of transition, are the key to the ideas with which we have been particularly concerned. On even a superficial consideration of spiritual life, we must admit that thoughts and ideas of a new kind are emerging, although individuals living in the very midst of this new order hardly realize it themselves. It will be a good thing if we can take away material for thought which will help us to carry our ideas further. So this evening I want to give certain suggestions which will enable you to elaborate the spiritual scientific knowledge already communicated to you. When we refer to a period of transition, it is well to remind ourselves of the greater epochs of transition in the evolution of humanity, and particularly of the crucial point reached in the events in Palestine. From much that has been said, we know the significance of that time. When we try to form some conception of how the supremely important idea, the Christ idea, arose out of thoughts and feelings of the immediately preceding period, we must remember that the Yahweh or Jehovah idea meant as much to the ancient Hebrews as the Christ idea meant to those who became his followers. From other lectures we also know that for those who penetrate deeply into the essence of Christianity, the being Yahweh or Jehovah is not to be distinguished from Christ himself. We must clearly understand that there is an intimate relationship between the Yahweh idea and the Christ idea. It is difficult to summarize in a few words the vast aspects of the relationship. The subject has been elaborated in many lectures and lecture courses in recent years, but I can illustrate it by a picture. I need only remind you again of the picture of the sunlight, which can come to us either direct from the sun or by reflection at night from the moon, especially at full moon. After all, it is sunlight that comes from the full moon, even if it is reflected sunlight, and this does indeed differ from sunlight directly received. If we think of Christ as symbolized by the direct sunlight, we may liken Yahweh to sunlight reflected by the moon, and that would represent the exact sense in which the two ideas should be understood. Those who are to some extent conversant with this subject regard the transition from a temporary reflection of Christ in Yahweh into Christ himself, just as they think of the difference between sunlight and moonlight. Yahweh is an indirect, and Christ a direct revelation of the same being. Thinking in terms of evolution, however, we must picture what is side by side in space as successive in time. Those who speak of these things from the point of view of occultism will say, if we call the religion of Christ a sun religion, and there are good grounds for this expression, if we recall what was said about Zarathustra, we may call the Yahweh religion a moon religion, the transitory reflection of the Christ religion. Thus, in the period preceding the birth of Christianity, the sun religion was prepared for by a moon religion. You will only be able to understand what I am now going to say if you realize that symbols are not chosen arbitrarily, but have deep foundations. When a world conception or world religion is associated with a symbol, those who use the symbol with adequate knowledge are aware that it is intimately and essentially connected with what it represents. People today have in many ways lost sight of the symbol of moonlight for the old Yahweh religion, and to some extent also the symbol of the sun for Christianity. You will remember how I have described the course of the evolution of humanity. First, it is a descent, beginning when man was driven out of the spiritual world and sank more and more deeply into matter. And if we picture the general path of evolution, we can think of the lowest point as having been reached at the time of the Christ impulse. After which the descent was transformed gradually into an ascent. The Christ impulse began to have its effect at the lowest point, and will continue to work until the